What's happening, friends? Welcome to another edition of Syracuse Basketball Postgame, presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse Athletics. My name is Brent Axe. Happy New Year. If we haven't said it already, are we past? I think we're past the Larry David deadline of saying Happy New Year, but it's our first postgame show for 2025, so that'll be the last time I say Happy New Year, but not a happy start to the year for Syracuse basketball as they go to Tallahassee. They lose to Florida State. Final score 90-74. Syracuse is now 6-8 on the season. They've lost 6 of their last 8, and they are 0-3 in ACC play. And folks, we are at the point even here on January 4th. Syracuse is in the bottom 3 of the ACC standings, and that is going to ring a little louder if they continue on that pace, because the Orange are on pace to miss the tournament. Oh, not the NCAA tournament. They waved bye-bye to that a long time ago. They're on pace to miss the ACC tournament, folks. Remember, with ACC expansion this year, 15 of 18 teams make the ACC tournament. That means 3 teams will not even go to Charlotte for the ACC tournament. And if Syracuse continues on this pace, they're going to be one of those 3 teams. Positive developments, believe it or not, in Tallahassee. JJ Starling back in the lineup for Syracuse. Chris Bell, where you been all my life? 18 points. He leads Syracuse. He hits, 4 threes for Bell tonight? 4 of 4 from three-point range. 6 of 7 from the free throw line as well, because as we know, hashtag free throws matter. Chris Bell had not hit a three-pointer in literally a month. The last time he hit a three-pointer, and this is his specialty. He is a marksman. He is noted as one of the best three-point shooters in the ACC, certainly the best three-point shooter on this roster. He had not hit a 3 in a game since Syracuse played Tennessee in the ACC SEC Challenge on December 3rd. That is just over 1 month ago, right? So Bell's back on track. JJ's back in the lineup, which provided a little bit of a boost. He ended up struggling, as we'll go over the numbers here a little bit. But those are 2 positive developments for Syracuse in the long haul here as they settle into the thick of ACC play. I think Eric Devendorf, who did the color commentary tonight on the ACC Network, it's a pretty interesting comments we're going to get into. Plus, we'll hear from our Syracuse Sports Insiders, as always, who get exclusive commentary on this podcast and post-game show. We don't take commentary from social media or any place else. Our Syracuse Sports Insiders get their voice heard by being a part of our Syracuse Sports Insider text group, and we would love for you to join the party. Join subtext.com/Syracuse Sports is how you sign up. Hit that website there, or you can, and it'll stay at the bottom of your screen here so you guys can check it out and do a 2-week free trial if you haven't already. Just $3.99 a month after that. And being a Syracuse Sports Insider gives you direct text message access to me. You join a group that gets breaking news from me first, that gets commentary, inside analysis, the questions and comments that you guys want us to ask Syracuse coaches and players, and just a running dialogue of Syracuse sports news, information, analysis, and opinion. It has been great to see our Syracuse Sports Insider community grow. We would love for you to be a part of it. So just sign up by texting the word orange to 315-847-3895. Or again, hit that link. That's the easiest way to do it. Join subtext.com/Syracuse Sports. Syracuse's defense sunk their battleship tonight. It was a poor defensive effort for the Orange. They just could not stop. Now, Florida State is always long. Leonard Hamilton teams are long. They're athletic. They're some of the taller teams that you're going to face. Syracuse really struggled in the paint tonight. Points in the paint favoring Florida State, 40-26. Now, Florida State only hit 7 threes in this game, which the timing of their threes were just enough to push the lead up a little bit. Florida State roared out. Syracuse is only down by 2 at halftime. They actually played a competitive first half. Now, they were down at the under 16 timeout. Shout out to Jacob, one of our Syracuse Sports Insiders, who did the research on this. In 14 games this year, do you know how many times Syracuse has had the lead at that first timeout, which is the under 16 television timeout? Once. One time this year, Syracuse has had that lead. Now, at this point in this game, they're down 14-12 to Florida State, right? So at least they're competitive. They're in it. JJ is back in the lineup after missing 7 games with that broken left wrist, his non-shooting hand. Gives Syracuse a lift, hits a shot, hits a 3, And look, this team is just more organized offensively when JJ is out there. It's no coincidence that JJ's back in the lineup and Chris Bell has his best game of the year. And Chris Bell is open for threes. And Chris Bell, who did not start, by the way, as anticipated, Adrian Autry switched up his starting lineup. He needed to switch up his starting lineup, frankly, given the struggles of Chris Bell, the struggles of Elijah Moore. And it's important. The starting lineup's not always important in the sense of who those players are. It's who's playing in the crunch time, who's playing when it matters. But your starting lineup certainly matters when you have been off to as many slow starts as Syracuse has all year long. So Jaquan Carlos, JJ Starling, back from injury, who was reported as a game-time decision, went through warm-ups for the first time, and there he was back in the lineup tonight. Lucas Taylor gets the start along with Donnie Freeman and Eddie Lampkin, who have been regulars in the starting five. So having JJ back certainly helped Chris Bell. So if Chris Bell's back on his game and Chris Bell is better off the bench and Chris Bell is better in a situation where maybe the weight is not on him as a starter, that's a positive development for Syracuse. JJ being back in the lineup. Now, JJ tonight ends up, let's see here, 12 points. He went 5 of 16 from the field, 2 of 7 from three-point range, 3 assists, 3 turnovers on the night in 32 minutes. Having JJ back is a positive by any stretch of the imagination, and it just makes things so much easier. It takes pressure. Now, think of the dynamic that's developing between Kyle Cuff Jr. and Jaquan Carlos. Carlos started tonight. He's probably next in the lineup in terms of players that could work their way out of the starting lineup. I just don't get the justification for keeping him in the starting lineup. And look, I've been up and down on Carlos this year. I feel bad, frankly, for how hard I've been on him. I'm just analyzing him basketball-wise. It's not anything personal, but 2 points, 1 of 5, 3 rebounds, 3 turnovers in 20 minutes tonight. Had some turnovers that led directly to Florida State points. Some of these are unforced errors. Now, Syracuse has really struggled with turnovers as of late. They had 21 against Maryland. I think they averaged 20 turnovers, I believe Mike Waters put in his game preview in their last 3 or 4 games. Air quotes, only 14 turnovers tonight. So Syracuse comes out of the gate. They have 5 early turnovers. The pace the turnovers went from there was at least a little slower. 14 is good for what they've had lately. It's not what you want, obviously, as Florida State only has 9 on the night. And the Seminoles got 16 points off those turnovers. But it's the unforced errors. This is just not a smart team. They don't take what the defense gives them. They don't run anything that resembles an offense. Defensively, they're poor, as we saw. And their shot selection and just their basketball IQ is not there. And I just don't want to continue to rail on Autry, though Eric Devendorf certainly defended him, as we're going to get to here shortly. But this has to fall on the players at some point, too, right? Like, it's not like the coaches don't tell them certain things. And I'm not excusing the coaching staff here, but this team is just not smart enough to take what the defense gives them, to run something that's a sharp, crisp offense. It just seems so improvised all the time. But at least JJ is back, who's a smart player, who is a leader, who can facilitate the offense. He can run the point when you need him to. And with Carlos and Cuff kind of figuring out who's going to do that, having JJ back doesn't solve all your problems. They still lost this game 90-74, don't get me wrong. But if him being back leads to Bell being back offensively with 18 and it brings some kind of structure to an offense that desperately needs it, you will take him. Donnie Freeman, I think, had an interesting game. He had a double-double. You will take a double-double from Donnie Freeman every day of the week and twice on Sunday. He had 16 points and 10 rebounds, but he was part of that poor defensive effort that we were talking about. Donnie really struggled on defense. You could see the speed of the ACC starting. Florida State's always, as we noted, one of the longer, more athletic teams that you're going to face. He's still adjusting. And look, we are in an era where players are one and done. The transfer portal only keeps players around for a season or two. Donnie Freeman came in as the highest rated recruit Syracuse has had since Carmelo Anthony. And some would say, well, it's not fair to judge him like that. Nobody's comparing him to Carmelo as a player, but he was the 5th rated recruit in the country by some smart people. And recruiting is always a tricky proposition. Don't get me wrong. I had Paul Biancardi from ESPN on Syracuse Sports, who could not be more effusive in his praise of Donnie Freeman. Freeman's showing up, all these draft gurus and the people that do the mock drafts and like credible guys. that do the work, that go to the tournaments, that have seen these players, right, had Freeman as a top 15, a lottery pick in the upcoming NBA draft, which, by the way, he still might be, right? But you just never know with the freshmen, especially when you get to conference play, getting through the grind of the season, you're playing more games than in high school. Like all these things that still matter, even in the portal era, the NIL era, and all these things that accelerate expectations on players. That's the burden you have to live with. When Kiyan Anthony walks on campus next year, love it or hate it, and you could say it's not fair to compare him to his dad. Look, he's walking in as the top-rated player in New York State. He has the last name, all the hype and effort that went into recruiting him. It comes with a certain burden, if you want to put it that way, a weight on your shoulders, a level of expectation. Fair or not, that is what you're going to be judged by, right? So I think Freeman has to be given some flexibility in how we evaluate him because of those things. He's still a freshman, right? And he's still at a double-double. So we're not talking about a guy that was wasting his time out there and still is unequivocally a starter on this team. Points in the paint, though, were a major issue for Syracuse as Florida State beat them there 40-26. Eddie Lampkin got into foul trouble. He only ends up playing, let's see, Lampkin played 18 minutes. He scored 4 points, grabbed 5 rebounds. Now, frankly, Lampkin's not like a shutdown defender to start with, but you want that presence in the paint. So when you take his presence away, you're counting on others to pick things up defensively, which obviously did not happen in this game tonight. So Freeman, offensively, coming along. You need him out there. You just kind of have to go through those growing pains with him. But he had some real lapses on defense, which you hope he watches the film on and tries to improve on. It has to be coached up on these things that even as a highly rated freshman, still a freshman nonetheless, that has to get through these things. Lucas Taylor starts. He ends up with 10 points on the night. He did pick up 4 fouls in this game in 29 minutes. A couple other, I like what Kyle Cuff's doing for this team right now. I thought his shot selection was a lot better tonight. 3 of 8. Did hit a key 3 to get Syracuse back in this thing. He did foul out in 14 minutes. Look, he brings energy. He brings an ability to attack the basket, though he does get blocked once or twice a game, it seems. But I like the guts and the ability and the willingness to take it to the rack. And I think that Cuff is going to play his way into the starting lineup. I think he's going to bump Carlos out at some point. You can't, like you moved Chris Bell out of the starting lineup tonight and put Lucas Taylor in the starting lineup tonight because you had to, because Elijah Moore and Chris Bell, production-wise, it wasn't there. Bell proved tonight that while maybe not back in the starting lineup next game, he could be back in it sooner rather than later. Sometimes it just takes a real shakeup, something that really sends a message like we like you, we know what you're capable of, but I got to put the best players on the court, and he was certainly not one of the best players on the court in the last 6 or 7 games. He was Syracuse's best player tonight with 18 points, right? Elijah Moore struggled again. He only played 3 minutes. Petar Mastranovic, 7 rebounds, second leading rebounder on this team. I still think he struggles on the defensive end against bigger, more athletic guys. You're going to see one of our comments from our Syracuse Sports Insiders. Look, if he's going to be on the floor in the last 4 or 5 minutes of the game, you're taking a risk there because his offensive game is still developing. People love his grit and his hustle, and I mentioned his rebounding. Defensively, he's flawed. I had somebody on Twitter say that I said he shouldn't play. I did not say that. And if I did not mean it to the sense that he shouldn't play at all. Should he not play in certain matchups, in certain situations, in certain games? Absolutely. Especially when the Wake Forest game, they were just scoring over him left and right. So you got to get him out of there. Peter's got a role on this team, and I like to see the energy that he brings with 13 minutes tonight. He has a role. He should play. I'm not saying he should be benched, but when he's overwhelmed, like any player, overwhelmed in a matchup and isn't more positive than negative in terms of the contributions, if he's helping you more than hurting you, sure, play him. But he only scores 2 points tonight. And what's the other? Jair Davis looked like he was getting back on track. 21 minutes tonight, does not score, only shot twice, grabbed 4 rebounds, dished out 3 assists, didn't pick up a foul. But I brought this up in the last postgame show. Davis is a difference maker in the paint. And tonight was an example of that. With Florida State's ability to score in the paint, they're big, they're strong. You need your big and strong guys to counter that. Davis just couldn't do that as he gets used to the pace of ACC play, the athleticism of ACC play between him and Carlos. Lampkin's played in the Big 12, so I don't have any concerns there. He got into foul trouble tonight, but Lampkin certainly got to be better for this team in these spots. And we've seen these guys, Lucas Taylor included, making that adjustment into ACC play. And Syracuse is 3 games in here, and they're 0-3. And as I said at the top, they are in danger of missing the ACC tournament. Let's go to what Eric Devendorf said. Now, here's the requisite, yeah buts, if you will. Here's the disclaimer. Eric Devendorf is going to be really good at this. Eric Devendorf's been a guest on this pod before. He will be a guest on this pod again. I consider Eric a friend, okay? Here comes the but, right? I think Eric really misfired in his commentary tonight. And look, Eric's in a spot because anytime a former player is doing games for their particular team, you got to be really careful not to tip to the audience that you're a homer, right? If you're a Syracuse guy doing a Syracuse game, you almost have to go out of your way to be objective and fair. And I'm not saying that Devendorf had an issue with that. I think he called it straight both ways. So what happened was they come out of a commercial break, and Syracuse is actually going for its 2,000th overall program win the next time that they do pick up a win. And then they showed a camera shot of the SU women's basketball team in the crowd. They're playing Florida State this weekend as well. And so Devo mentioned they're struggling like this team has struggled. And then he said this, and I'm going to put the quote on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. Quote, "I know they're struggling this season and the fans are putting a lot of heat on Coach Red. But like I said, 20 wins the first season. This year hasn't gone as imagined so far. All you guys on social media saying this and that, you really have no clue what goes on behind the scenes and all the stuff they have to deal with. Coach Red is doing as well of a job as he can. He'll continue to get better," right? End quote. That's what Eric Devendorf said. I think Devo did not do a good enough job explaining what Coach Red's doing well. If you're going to make a declarative statement like that and say he's doing an unbelievable job as head coach, you have to tell the viewer why. You have to give us the insight as to why. Otherwise, it just sounds like an empty defense of your school and somebody that you know and are close with in Red Autry, right? Again, you're in a spot as a Syracuse guy doing a Syracuse game. You have to go out of your way to show that you're objective. And Devo has been critical of Syracuse this year. That has not been an issue, and I would like to reiterate, he's good at this, and he's going to be great at this. Devo is going to rise up the ranks and I think become a top-level color commentator in college basketball sooner rather than later, right? What also bothered me, though, is this point. What goes on behind the scenes and all the stuff they have to deal with. Eric, what they're judged by, and you know this, I'm not telling Eric anything he doesn't know here, but what you are judged by is what we do see. We see the games. We see the results on the court, and that's ultimately what you're judged by. You can't justify the job that Adrian Autry's doing by the stuff we don't see. As a person that has that access and has been there and done that, you got to take the viewer there. You can't just make this vague reference. Oh, you guys don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You don't know what they're going through. You do. You have that access. You have been there as a player, so you got to tell the viewer that. Because what we see are the games. What we see is the results on the court. That's what you're judged by. You cannot justify whether, no matter what you think the job Adrian Autry's doing or not, but you can't offer a staunch defense of Autry in saying that. And taking shots, I mean, look, social media, it's like the old Star Wars line, you'll never, what was it that Obi-Wan Kenobi said? You'll never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy, right? I get that. I get where Devo's coming from, and some people, on social, but these are your fans that are going in this social media, our Syracuse Sports Insiders, podcast, whatever the format is, they're judging what they see on the court. They're judging the games. So if you're going to bring something like that to the table, you got to tell us what that is. Well, what are they going through behind the scenes? Are you talking about the injuries? What are you talking about, right? So Eric's and any color commentator's got to be careful with that, right? Because otherwise it just sounds like you're offering an empty defense. Adrian Autry is 26-20 as the head coach of this team now. And Devo's main point was they won 20 games last year. That was last year. This team this year, what are they doing that makes you say he's doing an unbelievable job? Because anybody that's watched this team this year knows they're not a good basketball team. They're not a smart basketball team. They're 6-8. They're 0-3 in ACC play. They are not improving. They did not have JJ Starling in the lineup. I get that, and the things we've well gone over on this podcast. But if you're going to stick your neck out like that and defend Autry and say he's doing as well of a job as you think he is, if you believe that, great. You just got to do a better job explaining why. And I don't think Eric hit the mark there. And given that fans are a little edgy right now, and look, it's hard to be a Syracuse basketball fan. I said this in the last podcast. It's going to be hard to watch this team this year. They're going through a lot of growing pains. They're not very good in a lot of ways. They're not getting better. They're now a threat to miss the ACC tournament. They're certainly not going to make the NCAA tournament, which Syracuse will now have not made the tournament, and barring a miracle, that they make it 4 years in a row. Everybody associated with the program would say that is unacceptable, right? And you've got Eric on, it's the ACC Network, it's not ESPN, but it's enough of a broadcast. Like, as soon as that came out of his mouth, I'm like, well, I've got to write about that. That's a strong defense of Adrian Autry, which is great. If you believe it, you just got to tell us why. You just got to tell us why. And I just don't think he hit the mark there, right? You've got to go. And I was curious. I'm like, what is he seeing that I don't see as a former player, as one of the smartest people I know that talks about basketball, that knows basketball. You've seen it on this pod. You've seen it on Mike Waters' pod. You hear it when he does the broadcast. Devo is as smart as they come when it comes to breaking down hoops. And I will listen to Eric Devendorf talk basketball all day, right? But if you're going to offer that kind of defense of Autry, this program, and where they're at right now, it can't be what you said. So look, it happens to, I have bad podcasts all the time. I'm not a former player in the position that Devo's in, though, right? I'm just a dude on a podcast and writing columns and telling you what I see. I didn't play the game. I don't know the things that Eric does. So again, if you're going to reference behind the scenes things and you think he's doing an unbelievable job, well, you've got to make that case as somebody that has that insight and that knowledge that we don't have. That's all. And Eric knows that, and I think Eric is probably going to kick himself when he gets the feedback on this. He'll be better next time. And he's good at this. And I look forward to seeing Eric Devendorf grow as a color commentator and growing in the television business, because he's good at it now, and he's going to be great at it. He just misfired on that. That's all. It happens. But Syracuse, as we're going to see from our insiders on that darn social media where those guys don't have a clue, right? Like, people, it can be exaggerated what people say in these formats, especially when it's somewhat anonymous, right? I get that. But you can't be disingenuous. We've watched this team. We watch the games. We see what's happening. And in no way, shape, or form is it something that is injecting people with enthusiasm, that is injecting people. And I've said it on this pod 100 times. I'll say it 100 more. You got to give the fan base something to latch on to. And this team is failing to do that. Unfortunately, I get no pleasure in saying that, right? They have their moments. Don't get me wrong. There's certain players, certain things you can latch on to from time to time. But generally, it's frustrating watching this team. And not just because they're losing, and not just because they're not up to the orange standard that Red Autry talks about all the time. It's the literal way they play the game and how they lose these games and inevitable things like tonight. Florida State comes out, second half, 12-5 run. And at that point, you're like, well, they're done. Because they have not proven that they've played some close games, don't get me wrong, this year, but this is not a team that injects you with that confidence, that gives you something to latch onto to say, oh, yeah, they'll pull this out, right? They don't have the coach that's proven that thus far. They don't have a takeover guy who, that guy was back in the lineup tonight, but that's asking a lot for JJ to come back and take over a game. Chris Bell was great after being off the face of the planet for the last 6-7 games. So, again, two very positive developments there for Syracuse, right? But as it stands right now in kind of the macro and the micro, it's hard to watch this team. So Devo was speaking from the heart there. I think he was almost I would never speak for him, but it was almost like he was saying what he thinks will happen. And you know what? Maybe Autry turns this thing around, gets the train on the right track, and Devo can circle back one day and say, I told you guys, right? But in the here and now, it's not the case, right? So I think Devo, and again, when you're live, I mean, come on, I've been there, right? And you wish you said something a different way, or I think if he had that over again, lay out why you think Autry will turn it around. And he did mention the good recruiting he's had. He did mention a couple of those things there, to be fair, but I think that commentary missed the mark. So I didn't want to harp on that too much, but a lot of you were talking about it, and as soon as Eric said it, I was like, oh boy, this is not going to sit well with the fans. But we all love Devo. Syracuse fans love Devo. I think a lot of people loved what he said, even if you don't disagree with what the results are showing. So we'll see where it goes from here. But bottom line is this team is not making the improvement it needs to, particularly on the defensive end, at the rate it needs to stay even in contention for the ACC tournament. We'll see if getting JJ back and Chris Bell, if he stays on track, helps. It's a long season. Everybody has ups and downs, and you've got to wade your way through that. See what our Syracuse Sports Insiders say about where they think this goes from here after the Florida State matchup. Let's see. Rob W. will lead us off today. Tell your cousin, Rob, despite another loss, there are two positives that stick out to me. First, JJ's back. He'll only get better as he works himself back into shape. And secondly, Bell seemed to rediscover his shot. Jeff N. says it's a shame because for the first time in a while, Syracuse had enough offense to win, but they just couldn't get any stops when needed. Chris Bell finally got it going. Yeah, for this team to hit 10 threes, and Bell had a bunch of those, but Donnie Freeman hit a three. JJ Starling, 2 threes. Lucas Taylor, 2 threes. Kyle Cuff hit a 3. Chris Bell, 4 of 4. You had balance at the three-point line. Just because your primary three-point shooter was on the bench, and I'm referencing what Chris Bell has done to this point. He was great tonight, obviously. But what's been the case is if Bell's not hitting threes, Syracuse isn't hitting threes at all, especially when JJ was out. There was balance there. Taylor is proving he can hit a few a game. Bell's back. JJ's back, right? 10 threes. But because of the defensive lapses, I mean, they hit 10 threes. They scored 74 points. They gave up 90. Because of the defensive lapses, it all washes out, right? Brian N. says, this is a serious question worth pondering. Are we the worst team in the ACC? Look, they're a bottom 3 team in the league right now. If the season ended today, they wouldn't make the ACC tournament. It's in play. I'm not going to rubber stamp they're the worst team in the ACC on January 4th, but through 3 ACC games with Georgia Tech coming to the Dome on Tuesday night, what makes you think, and I'm asking this literally, what makes you think they will escape that conversation? They have not done enough to give you something to latch onto to say, oh, yeah, they'll be fine. Autry will coach them out of this, or this player will lead them out of it, or they don't have that. They haven't proven that to this point, at the very least, right? So, Brian, the answer is, are they the worst team in the ACC now? They're in the conversation. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Christopher K. says, never purposely ever missed a game. I did today, and I'm better for it. No reason to waste time anymore. I followed Syracuse sports like a religion for 30 years, and I'm done. Look, I would never tell you guys what to do and how to do it and how to spend your time. I respect the fact that people have lives, they have kids, they have responsibilities. Watching sports takes time out of your schedule. You've got to make an effort to do it. I can't find myself going there as if I was a fan, right? Like I am a rabid Buffalo Bills fan. As dark as it got for a long time with the Buffalo Bills, 17 years, no playoffs, the drought, some of those awful losses they went through, the coaching changes. I would never get to that point as a Bills fan. Like, can't do it, not watching. I've come this far, and I build my Sundays around that, and just that's me. That's what I do, right? So I get what Chris is saying, and I've heard more of this from more people than ever. Like, I just can't do it, Brent. I can't watch this team. I mean, these are longtime dedicated fans. Fairweather fans, they're gone already. Donna DeToda noted in her quick takes column on syracuse.com, usually there's a lot of Syracuse fans on the road in Florida, not in this game, right? So they're not coming. People aren't making the effort, right? I just can't find myself getting there. I'm not telling you what to do and how to do it, and I'm not like tisk-tisking you for that. I'm just saying, like, man, I can't. Is it that bad where people are like, I can't even watch my favorite team? Whew. That's rough. That's rough, and that's on Syracuse, and that's on a lot of people to get those fans back. Don't get me wrong, but we're really there. Like, I just have my brain has a hard time processing that. Like, as a fan, you got to be there. To the good times, the bad, and everything. Certainly not just be a homer and take what you're given like a sheep. No, far from it, right? Come on, you guys know me. That's the last thing I would expect of you. But to not even watch the games, man, that's rough. Syracuse can't like hearing that, and it's certainly going to show in the attendance, and it's going to show in a lot of different ways. Here's the thing, though, guys, and I'm not just saying this to brighten your spirits, if you will. In basketball, you know how quick this can turn around? One player can turn things around. And I don't want to put it on any one of these upcoming players, but people keep pointing the beacon over the hill, as I like to call it. Kiyan Anthony, Sadiq White. Sadiq White is like Donnie Freeman, frankly, so we'll see if the rankings match the talent. But Sadiq White is noted as one of the most athletic and one of the more explosive recruits coming in next year. He's basically Hakeem Warwick, right? One player can turn things around. Cooper Flagg, now this is Duke, and they're a factory of players, but a Cooper Flagg at Duke, just think of those players that come in and take over a sport, even in the NIL era, even in the transfer portal era, that can turn things around like that. Basketball, one guy can do it. One guy can do it. So as much as this appears to be a sinking ship at this moment, it can turn around quickly. And all those fans that abandoned ship are all of a sudden going to be back. Hey, guys, I've been here the whole time. Like, it's to me, it's just more satisfying. Like, right now, as a Buffalo Bills fan, you know what my expectation is? Win the damn Super Bowl. Beat Kansas City, win the Super Bowl. I can expect that because that's how good Josh Allen is, right? One guy. I know it's football and it takes 53 guys and all the cliches. Josh Allen has turned that around for the Buffalo Bills. One guy can do that in basketball too. Like when Carmelo was on that team, sky was the limit. You just knew after a pretty short period of time, like this guy can carry us. This guy can do some special things. So it can change that quickly in the portal era, good old fashioned recruiting. So again, I would never tell you how to root for your team and what to do with your time, but I think it's more satisfying when you rode out the tough times and now things are look at Syracuse football. Think of the dark times you went through in the Greg Robinson era and some of the frustrating years. 500 football, below 500 football, no bowl games, empty dome. It felt like there was no reason to go, no reason to watch. Didn't that pay off this year when you have a great season and you have a coach that looks like he's going to continue bringing in talent, recruiting well, using the portal, has put forth a culture that makes you believe that Syracuse football can sustain this going forward? Didn't it make all those dark times worth it? Right? So I know, I get it, guys. It's rough. It is rough right now, but that's, as it was once said, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat, right? That's sports, man. It will test your loyalty. It will test a lot of things about you, not only as a sports fan, but as a person. So that makes me sad to hear that because watching Syracuse basketball is what gets us through the winter, right? I shoveled that driveway 3 times today. You know what I was thinking about when I was shoveling the driveway? I wonder if Autry's going to change the lineup tonight, right? That's what gets us through. As good as the football program is now, Syracuse basketball is still this 800-pound gorilla. At least I think it is. Maybe it's not as much as it used to be, but that just makes me sad that some of the more dedicated, passionate fans are at that point. We're like, I just can't do it. Anyway, I'm rambling now. But Paul L. says, Syracuse played only slightly better with JJ in the lineup as they finished with 5 guys in double figures. Bottom line was another double-digit loss and an 0-3 hole in the ACC. Chuck A. Now, Chuck said this to me during the game, and he was not the only one. I'm using Chuck's text as kind of a representation. I'm not kidding. Like 15 people texted me the same thing. Autry's facial expressions and body language are very telling. We've lost this game already in his mind. That was sent during the game, right? I don't want to pretend to be a body language expert. I don't want to pretend to be somebody that can read people, because you never know what a person's really thinking. But doing this long enough, like I think I actually am pretty good at that. When I'm thinking the same thing, right? You can kind of hold on that camera shot for 4 or 5 seconds, and you're like, is this a guy that believes they're going to win the game? There are certain coaches that you could pan to. They could be down 45-0. You're like, he thinks he's going to win, right? I just found that, and that had not happened till tonight. That had not happened till this game. So many people are like, man, he doesn't even look like he thinks they can win. But anyway, Matt P. says, this can't all be on Red. Speaking of which, they just seem to have zero chemistry, although that may have something to do with Red's seemingly lack of feel for letting lineups gel together. Robbie T says, it was nice to see JJ back out there. He's only going to get better, which is only going to make Bell more of a force. I like how Red is dividing time between Carlos and Cuff. Freeman is proving to be a double-double machine. Lampkin and Davis have the same potential, but need to find their spots with JJ back on the court. From Jim B, not that Jim B, it's just so hard to watch this team. Defense has been terrible since the Lemoyne game and has not gotten any better. They're on track to miss the ACC tournament. From Roland B, I think I called him Ron B last time. My bad, Roland. This team simply doesn't have the ability to win games. I wish it wasn't the case, but they just don't. They don't get stops when they need to or score when they need to. It's always wrong. And speaking of stops, they played zone tonight. They've pressed. They have a base of man-to-man. They went to zone tonight. It feels like no matter what defense they play, they're looking on the sideline saying, what else you got? Gary D, it's a bad loss. Opportunity to win, but cannot play an entire game the way they need to play in order to win. And on that note, they have these lapses. Basketball's a game of runs. I get the cliche. But Syracuse will just, I mentioned Carlos had a turnover. Now it's 48-39. Florida State did enough, that 12-5 run out of the break. So you get to a certain gap. I don't know what it is. You tell me, 10 points, 12 points, and you're like, they can't get out of this hole because they don't make enough stops. You need someone to just go on the heater of heaters to get out of that hole because they're not going to do it defensively. Now, think how weird that is to say about Syracuse, which for so long, you would say at least they have the defense that can thwart a run like that and can turn a game around. Just think of that Virginia game in 2016 in the NCAA tournament. But now they're man-to-man. Now they're pressed. Now they're a little bit everything, which is part of the issue right there. They don't have the identity they used to. They're still searching for it. Sean B, not sure if I'm totally in favor of this yet, but how bad does it need to move on from Autry this year? I get that we have a top 5-10 recruiting class coming in, but that should not give him a free pass. That's the question people are going to ponder and continue to ponder. And tonight, Eric Devendorf offered a staunch rebuttal on. I don't think they're going to move on from Autry. I'm not at the point where I'm going to call for that because I know what a coaching change, how serious that is. Like once you ring that bell and say you want to coach out, you can't unring that. And you've got to go all in on the prospect of making a major change. And even in the portal era, NIL era, things are quicker. You're judged quicker. You do have to give a coach time to develop. But as it was once said in Ghostbusters, I've worked in the private sector. They expect results. This is not a well-coached team, by and large. They don't give you anything to latch onto. They're falling deeper into a hole. If they miss the ACC tournament, you're putting so much pressure on that team next year to get you out of the hole that certainly Adrian Autry did not start digging himself. But the thing that works against Autry, fair or not, he was on Boeheim's staff, right? This was not a clean break. This was not a Fran Brown brought in from the outside and judged on what he does alone. Autry's been a part of this thing for a long time. So when that conversation gets serious, and to a lot of people it already is, some will say you can't, trying to think of the right way to put this. Some will say you can't use that against him. Some will say you absolutely can because he was part of building what Syracuse basketball is now. I fall on that side of things. I think that's fair. There's a big difference between being an assistant coach and a head coach. I understand that, but he was part of the process. He doesn't get the clean break when he takes over as head coach. It is fair or not, even though he's tried to reshape this in his image. And I'm still failing to see exactly what that is because I see a lot of the same stuff that I saw when Boeheim was coaching. Fair or not, you're attached to that. That's the gig. That's the job that you took, right? So Sean's question's a fair one. Some people are already there. If it costs you those recruits next year, I'm just asking rhetorical questions now. What if Kion Anthony is tied at the hip with Adrian Autry? They get rid of Autry, you lose him. You don't want one recruit to seal your fate on a conversation like that, but the ripples in the pond from this, it's easy to say on Twitter when you're frustrated during a game. It's easy to text me and be like, oh, I got to fire a coach, right? It's easy to blow off steam like that, but that is literally the biggest thing you can say in sports is fire the coach and the ramifications of that. So just think about that when you hold that opinion. But if you're there, I'm not saying you shouldn't be, because they've got to give you a reason to believe. Certainly, Autry has got to give Devendorf's words a little more credence. That staunch defense of Adrian Autry, right? Putting it back on your screen on YouTube if you're watching it. Autry has got to back Devo with the way he coaches, right? He's got to give people a reason to believe in that. And what we're seeing right now is it's hard to believe in that from what you're seeing game in and game out, right? So that's where I think I get those questions and I understand why people are asking them. But boy, when you ring that bell, there's no going back. So Syracuse will be back on the court Tuesday at home. Georgia Tech that's a 7:00 tip. We'll be back with Syracuse basketball postgame presented by Krause Health after that matchup. Certainly a lot on the football front. We're continuing to wait and see what the NCAA is going to do with Kyle McCord and his appeal, trying to get that 5th year of eligibility. It was interesting this week to see that that's pretty much going to become a thing, that college athletes are going to have 5 years of eligibility. It would be the most NCAA thing ever if they deny McCord's appeal and then they're like, hey, everybody gets 5 years, right? Who wouldn't put past the NCAA to do something like that? But we'll continue to monitor that. Anything we know, our Syracuse Sports Insiders will know first. Transfer portal. You know what else is entering the chat, as the kids like to say? Who's ready for some lacrosse? Little Birdie told me the schedule's coming out Monday or Tuesday. Practice starts Thursday. Let's go. We'll be all over that. So being a Syracuse Sports Insider means you're going to get all those texts, all that information, all those opinions, all the things that I learned. You get it first. Your great questions, opinions, analysis. We watch games together. I love to see the ebb and flow of what you're feeling during a game. It's just $3.99 a month to get direct text message access to me, to become a part of our group that gets all that information, analysis, opinion on Syracuse sports. We'd love for you to join today. Please subscribe to the pod. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever your preference is. Make sure you follow and subscribe so when new episodes of Syracuse Sports pop up, when our postgame show begins, our insiders always get a text letting them know when the postgame show is coming on live. But being a subscriber to Syracuse Sports will get you the ability not only to join us live, but to listen and watch on demand. If you have the time, leave us a review in any of those places. We'd love to hear what's on your mind. YouTube comments have been great, but Spotify, Apple, leave a review. Get in touch with Uncle Brent. As Deion Sanders likes to say, I'm not hard to find. Things you want to hear on the pod, how you think the pod's doing, what do you want us to do on the post-game shows. I'm always listening, right? So your feedback, as always, is welcomed and appreciated. That's it for tonight, though. Syracuse loses to Florida State 90-74. This has been Syracuse Basketball Postgame presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse Athletics. We will talk to you again Tuesday night after Syracuse takes on Georgia Tech. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, guys. Go Bills.